Now, India has been an important trading nation since ancient times. However, the restrictive policies adopted by the colonial government adversely affected the structure, composition, and volume of India's foreign trade. Now, the state of India's foreign trade during the British rule is discussed. Okay, so India, obviously we knew that it was a supplier of raw materials as well as import was done of the finished goods. So India had trade relations with many countries. So exporter, now what was the state of India's foreign trade? Exporter of primary products and importer of finished goods. Monopoly, control of British rule. Drain of Indian wealth during the British rule. Okay, so India became, the very first was exporter of primary products and importer of finished goods, which we had discussed just now in case of industrial scenario. India became an exporter of primary products like raw materials of raw silk, cotton, wool, sugar, indigo, jute, etc. And an importer of finished goods like cotton, silk and woolen clothes, and capital goods like light machinery produced in the British industries. British government, next, monopoly control of British rule. British government maintained a monopoly control over India's export and import. More than half of India's foreign trade was restricted to Britain, while the rest was allowed with few other countries like China, Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka, and Iran. Opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 served as a direct route for the ships operating between India and Britain. So the British people were so clever that they restricted the Indian trade only to Britain and few other countries like Sri Lanka, China and Iran. They did not allow India to trade with other countries, because if they allowed it, then the British interest will be hampered. Moreover, the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, the date is very important, served as a direct route for the British people to operate or to operate the trade, because now the ships could directly move. Earlier they had to move through a very larger route and come over to India. After opening of the Suez Canal, it was a direct route to India. Now, drain of Indian wealth during the British rule. Under the British rule, India became an exporter of primary products and an importer of finished goods. There was a huge export surplus due to excess exports. However, export surplus was used to make payment for expenses incurred by an office set up by colonial government, to meet expenses of war, and to import invisible items. So you can see, under the British rule, obviously India became an exporter of the raw materials. So export was high during those time. Taxes was on the handicrafts, but no taxes was imposed on the raw materials. So India was an exporter of raw materials, and the export surplus which Indians earned, or India earned, because it was an importer of finished products, India earned the export surplus which India earned. It was used to make payments of the offices, or the expenditure incurred by the offices of the British people in India. It was also used to meet the expenditure of the war fought by the British government. It was also used to import invisible items. So the export surplus was not used for the benefit of India. It was used for the British people, for their expenditure. Okay. The last thing for today is a trade through Suez Canal. See. So Suez Canal is an artificial waterway running from north to south across the Isthmus of Suez in northeastern Egypt. You have to refer to the map, children. Okay, the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, date is very important, reduced the cost of transportation and made access to Indian market easier. What I said that earlier they had to operate through a wider area, means उन लोगों को घूम के आना पड़ता था. But now there was a direct route to India, and thus the cost of transportation got reduced. Canal provided a direct trade route for ships operating between Britain and India and avoided the need to sail around Africa. So earlier they used to come by Africa, means Africa से घूम के आते थे. But after the opening of the Suez Canal, what was happening? There was a direct trade route for ships operating between Britain and India. Strategically and economically, it is one of the most important waterways in the world. So Suez Canal is an important waterway in the world. Okay. So tomorrow we will be moving to demographic condition and the occupational structure and the infrastructure. Okay. Thank you.